ABC News. Shannon Petty piece. And Shannon, I want to sort of develop on this concept the Atlantic put out there of sort of two summits going on, one actually there and the other in Trump's head. What are you seeing on the ground?
He is really playing up this friendship and camaraderie and unity between the world leaders. And we know that going into this, he was still attacking Europe over their trade policies. He was threatening the French with a wine tax. He's been threatening Germany with tariffs on their autos. So we know there are these underlying tensions. But yes, he has been, in his telling of the story of this G7 summit, he's been treated beautifully. He gets along great with Macron, and there's no division between any of them. But of course, in reality, even in public, we have seen divisions among these leaders on Iran, North Korea, and trade. And behind the scenes, I can tell you there's been a lot of headbutting between the White House staff and the French, including, as you mentioned, this visit yesterday by the Iranian foreign minister. The president says he was aware of that, but I was told, and my colleagues here, Hallie Jackson and Carol Lee, we were also told by our White House sources that even at the top levels of the administration, they were completely caught off guard by the arrival of Zarif, that they felt it was the French playing games with them, and it even increased tensions here. There's been a lot of complaints about the White House staff of the French. So, yes, there are these sort of two dueling realities going on where everything is going great in the way Trump tells it, and then clearly, as you hear from the other leaders, and when you scratch below the surface, these tensions and divisions all still remain, and I don't see any change on that front.
Of course, every leader that's there in Biarritz is playing to their own domestic audiences as well, right? And they all have to be worried about the state of not just the global economy, but their own economies. Angela Merkel came into this summit with news that the German economy was also contracting. How many frank conversations do you think there have been between those foreign leaders and the American delegation saying, listen, you cannot keep messing with the global economy. You're playing with fire here, and that is going to impact us back at home as well?
Well, when you talk about the delegations, the staff level, when you get past the president, I think there are often a lot of frank conversations. But it seems the rest of the world has figured out, like most people in America have, that President Trump is the only one who makes decisions. So they can have conversations with the State Department and their counterparts in the administration all day long, and those people can carry that message to the president. But he is going to see things in his way, and he's going to carry them out in his own way. I think, though, one of the reasons the president may be so optimistic and his tone might be so different from last year's G Summit, where, of course, he left early and then got in a Twitter war with Justin Trudeau, is because the world leaders seem to have learned how to talk to him, how to address him, how to not poke him and make him feel good about himself. There was even an exchange that got picked up on the microphone in French between Macron and Boris Johnson, where Boris Johnson was congratulating Macron on how well he handled a really tough situation at the dinner. And it's not clear what he's referring to, but it's possible he was referring to how you handled Trump and how happy Trump is leaving the summit, to the point where even the surprise visit by the Iranian foreign minister couldn't throw Trump off this optimistic, positive streak he's on today.
Yeah, Katty Kay, let me ask you about Boris Johnson. He's obviously walking a fine line in his relationship with Donald Trump. How is that playing in Britain, first of all? And secondly, how do you think he's playing his relationship with Donald Trump after saying in front of Trump that the Brits don't like tariffs and, in fact, that it's damaging the economy?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Boris, in some ways, has got Trump exactly where he wants him. I mean, having been quite critical of him during the 2016 campaign when he was mayor of London and saying some pretty rude things about Donald Trump, he's one of the few leaders who's managed to come back from having been rude in public about President Trump to having this kind of cozy relationship with him. And that's partly because Donald Trump thinks he can get something out of this relationship, right? He can get the fracturing of the European Union, which is something that he would like, and he thinks that Boris Johnson is the person to do that. And Boris Johnson, at the same time, wants to get this trade deal with the United States. But he's also got to be careful because he doesn't want to be seen, as Tony Blair was with George Bush, as the puppy of Donald Trump. No British Prime Minister wants to be seen seen as fully in the pocket of any American president. It's just not something they can do. And British audiences have some problems with the kinds of products we would need to take if we were going to have this great trade deal. Americans are happy to eat chickens that have been chlorinated, washed in chlorine. They're happy to eat beef that's been injected with hormones. British consumers won't accept that, and British voters won't respond well to a prime minister who signs us up for that kind of trade deal. So he's got to walk this balance. But so far, I think he has managed to figure out, as Sharon was just saying, many other leaders have also done, how you manage. I mean, it's like managing the kind of slightly truculent child at the party, right? How do you manage that important person at the party that you've got to get along with, but who's not very easy?
Wait. So we Americans eat chickens that are washed in chlorine? Mika, did you know this? Maybe we need a breaking news banner here.
Okay.
Sorry.
One more reason to be a vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
Okay.
All right, let me close out with Shannon here, looking ahead. Shannon, what's on the agenda for today? And also look ahead, if you could, for us to the president's next trip next week to Poland.
So we have a press conference coming today, but the president's been very chatty already today. He's had 3 meetings that he took questions for quite a bit of time from reporters. So I'm sure there'll be more questions, of course, that we have at the press conference, but he'll be addressing that in a couple hours. And then, yes, he comes back to Washington for a few days, and he's right back to Poland. There's going to be a World War II commemoration there. A lot of international leaders are going to be there. And, of course, he was planning on tacking on his Denmark trip, but that got canceled. And if I can just look forward to one more thing, the next year G7 summit is in the U.S. The U.S. hosts it. And he said today that he's looking at having it at his Doral golf course in Miami. He went on and on about what a great location that would be. And another thing to note, as the host, he would be able to invite Vladimir Putin as a special guest, even if Putin is not a member. So certainly that is something we could look forward to potentially next year this time.
Great. NBC's Shannon Pettypiece.